Good evening. We'll call to order the meeting Monday, March 27th, the Corte Madera Parks and Recreation Commission. Commissioners, please stand and salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rebecca, will you do roll call, please?
Commissioner Brown is absent. Commissioner Elson?
Here.
Commissioner Koenig is absent. Commissioner Phipps?
Here.
Commissioner Rose?
Here.
Commissioner Blumling is absent. Vice Chair Charlie?
Here.
And Chair Miles?
Here. Thank you. All right, before we start on the agenda, we'll open with time for public comment on items not on our agenda. Members of the public will be given 3 minutes apiece and can either raise a hand or email comments to publiccomment@tcmmail.org. Is that still the best email address? Okay. Rebecca, do we have any raised hands or email comments?
I do not currently see any raised hands, and is my public comment email open? We did not receive any emailed public comment.
Great. We will close public comment as time and move to presentations. Our first presentation is a preview of the summer activity guide by Ashley Helms.
All right, we're going to be loading up a copy fresh off the digital press for the activity guide, and that's going to be summer. That is May through August. On the cover, once you see it, we'll have a child doing our mad science program. It's really cool, colorful wise. Things that I like to highlight about the activity guide for this next issue is that we've got a couple of pages dedicated to the calendar that you can see now. So we've got our save the dates on the previous page on page 6. We've got our egg hunts that are coming up. We've got our May and June activities, our big band dances. And on the following pages, we have the rest of the summer. And those include the summer concert series produced by the Corte Madera Community Foundation at Menke Park, as well as the blood drives that we support through Kentfield Fire and our fire departments. And also notification about the hanging baskets. And on the next page, we have a page dedicated to our July 4th celebration through the chamber and through our staff and support that we do to produce the safe routes through both towns, as well as all the fun activities that are in Town Park following the parade. And on the next page, we have our save the dates. So a lot of these are supporting our community organizations. So we've got the car show by the Lions, we've got Oktoberfest at Menke Park, and then we have the Chambers Golf Tournament, and then we have the collaboration event for the Thanksgiving Day Turkey Trot. And then we've got the summer camp matrix on page 12 and 13. So again, it's by week. That's in addition to the just the dedicated print menu that we had that went out to the schools. And then if you keep going, then we've got our summer camp program. So our in-house Camp Corte Madera that I'd like to highlight. It's a couple pages down. And we've got open for camp counselors. So if anybody's looking for a summer job, please contact Alex Pretz, as well as if anybody's interested in serving as a CIT, a counselor in training this summer. She's taking applications now. They go through a mini interview process. It helps heighten the responsibilities that go along with being a role model at summer camp. And it's a great opportunity to kind of see whether children want to be future leaders. It is a role modeling because it's that age group that's between attending camp and being able to actually work and be paid to be there. So it's really great. And then if we can scroll down some more. There's our next page, and that kind of highlights all of the fun things that we have planned by week in the summer sessions. As well as field trips. So this is the first summer back with field trips. I'm kind of doing a modified version, kind of get everyone used to it, seeing what the feedback and response is for that. And then also highlighting the new things for 2023, which is the half day exclusive and then the lunchtime supervision and transitional assistance. So that again is to support if you have a child or a camper registered in one of the specialty camps, either AM or PM. If you have them in AM and you don't have childcare for the afternoon, you're welcome to sign up for Camp Corte Madera and we'll collect your children and bring them into the rest of the fold of the camp groups. As well as if you sign up for a morning and afternoon specialty camp, we've got you covered for lunchtime. We designated a location to meet each of the morning specialty camps and then also know where your camper needs to go in the afternoon and get them there safely. So get to stay in the park on the campus. We'll take care of that part. So it's kind of new, figuring out some of the kinks still. And then if we go to the inside back cover, that'll be towards the end, second page from the bottom. I'm giving Tim's driving right now because I wasn't able to connect online. We've got the Soma swimming and Redwood High School. That's our community swim program and the town's supporting. So this is the first time it's been in our activity guide. Generally, we've gotten the information a little bit past the production time. So we just wanted to highlight that opportunity. And then on the next page down, we've got the summer concert series highlighted at Menke Park for the Corte Madera Community Foundation. If you go to the inside front cover for me, that's our music and movie nights. And I wanted to follow up that we did receive $5,000 from the county to support making this more intergenerational. So we're looking for meeting them tomorrow to get a little bit more stipulations. They wanted to make sure that we had our program customized a little bit more to meet their requirements, but I think it's going to be really great. Also for this issue, we don't need to go to the pages, but we did incorporate Larkspur Recreation has about 6 pages. So we made sure we were bridging our distance between the other neighbors. And they submitted some of their camps and classes in their contact pages. And they've also got a movie night. It just didn't fit quite right to put their information on this page because they don't have music that goes ahead of it. So their movie is going to be the first Friday in September, and that will be Jurassic Park over at Piper Park. And that's your preview. We have it to the printers today. So it usually takes about 2 weeks before it comes to the post office and it gets mailed to Corte Madera, Larkspur, part of unincorporated Green Bay and Kentfield.
That is amazing. It looks incredibly well laid out and there is so much to do and amazing that we already know what's happening in the fall. Thank you, Ashley and Tim, for that.
Yeah, this layout makes it much easier to plan as a parent for summer, and the lunch support between morning and afternoon is amazing. And I think will be the difference between a lot of working parents being able to attend camps and not attend camps. So that's huge.
That's our goal. Please let us know if you have feedback out there from the community. Appreciate it.
Are there any commissioner questions before we open for public comment? Rebecca, do we have anyone from the public who has emailed a comment or has a raised hand?
I am not seeing any raised hands, and I'm trying to close that screen and open public comment. And we did not receive any emailed public comment.
We can bring it back to the commission for any further discussion. Excellent. Moving on to our second presenter.
Let's introduce our recreation coordinator, Perry Nall.
Hi, my name is Perry Nall. I'm a full-time recreation coordinator with the town of Corte Madera. I've been on staff since August 2020, and I have been running the senior program since October 2021 and presented a little summary of what we were doing so far coming out of COVID in May 2022, but I'm really excited to show you everything that we have now starting 2023. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, so this is a similar graphic that we had last. I thought it would be helpful to kind of start where we were a year ago and show you how much fuller our weekly schedule is. So this is our schedule. This happens every single week at the Corte Madera Community Center. I was really purposeful to have an activity every day of the week so that some seniors who are maybe part retired and still work a couple of days a week can still participate in programs with us. We have big groups that attend every one of our activities. I'll go into them a little bit more with pictures later on. But right now you can see Each activity, chair yoga happens twice a week. That one's been super popular. We have about 30 people attending that on Wednesdays. Senior fitness, that's a fun class. They do a little fitness routine along with a video from the 50s that Sue Grant leads. We have walks going on. We have the big band dances on the second Wednesday of the month. And Thursdays is our big senior day, like it used to be. We start with bingo at 10 a.m. and then in-person senior lunch. We transition to in-person lunch in December, which has been super exciting and just so fun to see everyone in person. And then we have bridge play at 2 o'clock and at 1 o'clock and 2:30, some bridge classes. So those are organized a little bit more like our youth classes where someone signs up for a 6-week session, but the rest of them are just drop-in, either free or at low cost. And people just come when they want to. And then Fridays, we have an AARP jargon course where people can get a discount on their insurance. And then a seniors and balance class on the last Friday of the month. And then these are a couple more of our programs that we're running. These are not every week. They're almost as needed. We have them advertised in our guide as if you're interested in a Detect and Connect workshop or financial security or different things the county offers. If we get 5 to 10 people interested, then we schedule a date and have them come in person. And those are our next AARP classes for the summertime. And then this is some of our marketing that we've been using. We do a little bit of online marketing, but our audience really prefers paper. So we have flyers, we have the activity guide that Ashley was just showing. We also have the reader board that advertises different things. And I think people really use that for the senior program. So that's great. And you'll see we have 3 or 4 pages of senior programs in the guide. Okay, so here are some of our photos from our programs. These were all taken this in the last couple months. So on the top, you can see the women that come to bingo every week. Many of them came, for many years and have been super excited, calling every month in 2020 saying, "I'm bringing bingo back." So we're super excited that we get to offer it. It's 50 cents a card. People really like it. The bridge class has been super popular and just the free bridge play, people come in. Chair yoga and seniors in balance are both $5. Our seniors in balance teacher is actually 97 and she was going to retire, but then we convinced her to come only monthly. So that's why that class continues. And it still has like 15 people that are calling every week saying, "When's that class this month again?" So I'm really glad we get to continue that one since people really like it. And then this is one of my favorite programs, the senior lunch. So one of the first programs I ran as a recreation coordinator was the to-go senior lunch that the county provided. It was kind of a brown bag lunch. People would take it home and heat it up in the microwave. And we had 30, 40 people coming every week and picking it up. And it was nice to get to know them in that way. And it's just been so special to have them actually come and sit down with us and I'll sit with them and chat. And they stay the full hour, even if they eat their food in the first 10 minutes. The vendors, Community Action Marin, the food has been really good. So everyone's really excited about that, even though they still miss Good Earth, but Community Action Marin is great also. It's $3 optional donation. People put them in a little donation box and then that money goes back into the program. So we purchased things like tablecloths for the holidays. We had some St. Patrick's decorations, which was really fun. These ones are from Christmas and just making it a little extra fun every week. And then this is the big band dance. So this is the last program I wanted to go into. The next one is on April 12th. You all have your physical invitation for it. I hope you come. It's 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. We have 17 people in the band, all range of ages. They practice every Wednesday when it isn't the dance, and then they perform on the second Wednesday. And it's just a really fun group. The dancers go around and dance at different places. So they take lessons in Mill Valley, and then they come and dance in Corte Madera. And everyone's super excited about it. There's lots of people that just come and listen or come to have some tea and listen to the music. So a lot of people dance and it's been really fun. So I hope you come April 12th. And then we have a video. I think we won't be able to hear it, but we can watch the dancing and then you can see the live music when you come on April 12th. And we'll link it to the minutes so you can watch the full video there. So yeah, that's all of our programs. If you know any seniors, send them our way. We would love to have them join our programs. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Perry. It's very exciting to see so much activity going on with our seniors. It's amazing. Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners before we open to public comment?
Just to clarify, you said most things were free or reduced rate. Of all the classes we talked about, which ones do we charge for?
Chair yoga and seniors in balance are $5 and 100% of it goes to the instructor.
Okay.
And the lunch is $3 optional and big band dance we charge for.
Okay, thank you.
I think you mentioned that seniors in balance, is it Shirley, or we've convinced her to stay a little bit longer? Do we have, but if it's one of the most popular ones, do we have a plan for when we can no longer convince her?
Yes, we've been trying. So she has a couple of people under her wing that she's been teaching, but they are not ready to take the next step and lead the full class. But we're hoping that someone will be able to take it over and get it back to weekly again soon.
Thanks.
Rebecca, do we have any public comment? Emailed or otherwise?
I am looking to see if there are any raised hands, and there are also no emailed public comments and no raised hands.
I think with that, we can close presentations. Thank you, Perry.
Thank you.
Moving on to the consent calendar. These are items that are routine or have been previously discussed and not require any further discussion. Any member of the public is welcome to make a comment or pull an item from the consent calendar for further discussion. We'll start by asking if anyone from the commission would like to pull anything from our consent calendar for discussion. We have approval of minutes from January 23rd and February 27th. I'm going to go with no. Would anyone from the public like to comment on the consent calendar?
I am not seeing any raised hands, and we did not receive any emailed public comment.
All right, with that, we'll bring it back to the commission for a possible motion. Would anyone like to move to approve the minutes?
Can we do both meetings together? Or do we need to do them separately?
Yes, that is the consent calendar. The only reason why they would not be done together is if somebody wanted to pull one and recuse themselves from that.
I did not attend the meeting on January 23rd, so
Yeah.
I would only be able to speak to the meeting in February. Is that
Well, you can, if you watched the video of the meeting, you're welcome to accept the minutes. Otherwise, we will not have a quorum to approve the minutes, and we will have to carry them over to the next meeting.
okay? I'm sorry, I did not watch the video.
Can we vote separately?
Let's vote separately. So is there a motion to approve the January 23rd minutes?
I make a motion to approve the January 23rd minutes.
Do we have a second?
I think that was the one we were going to
You're
carry forward.
Okay.
We
Carry
didn't
both
have,
of them forward.
We can do February if we have.
so do we have,
Oh, that's the one we have. Sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the February minutes.
I second that.
So Rebecca, can we have a vote, please?
thank you. Commissioner Brown is absent. Commissioner Elson,
Yes.
Commissioner Koenig, Commissioner Phipps,
Yes,
Commissioner Rose,
Yes.
Commissioner Blumling, Vice Chair Charlie,
Yes.
and Chair Miles.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion for the February 27th minutes pass, and the January 23rd minutes will be carried forward to the April meeting.
That brings us to tonight's business items. The first item is an update on the Parks and Rec Master Plan from Ashley Howe.
All right, this is going to be our meaty discussion for tonight. First of all, does everybody have a handout or have an opportunity to look through it? All right. So first of all, the recommended action for this meeting is to receive and discuss the update on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and provide feedback to staff. We're going to be focusing tonight on, this is our entire project. This is our stages that we've taken. This is where we're at, and this is and the steps that are going forward, rather than diving into the details of the attachments. Comprehensive master plans, just as a reminder, can be very expensive. The last one that the Corte Madera Parks and Recreation Department took on and completed was $252,000. and some change, and that was in 2007 and focused on the community center and Just Town Park. This project does include all of the inventory of parks and recreation facilities, indoor and outdoor. So it's a much more inclusive project. The Parks and Recreation Commission began working on this project in 2020 through our work of our subcommittee. And the intent was to complete much of the work in-house and save money and reduce the traditional large overhead, as well as create a concise master plan document of priorities that reflect the interests of our community, rather than creating a large document that generally resides on a website or in a drawer somewhere. We really wanted to have something that was easier to check off items and really get things done. So that was, again, what the focus of this project was, and the strategy that the subcommittee wanted to take. Two components of the current master plan project that needed assistance of subject matter experts and consultants were the community engagement and the assessment of facility conditions. And the implementation and evaluation of the needs assessment survey and completion of conditions assessment was pivotal to the integrity of this project and beyond the ability of town staff in the subcommittee. So first, ETC Institute, as you'll remember, was selected to spearhead the community engagement, and that was through the implementation of the survey, as well as the evaluation, and then delivering those, the data and the results to both the commission and to town council. And the total paid to that company was $24,125. Second is MAC5 in collaboration with RJA Landscape Architects, and that was they were selected to perform a facility conditions assessment and then to manage the remainder of our project. The purpose of performing a conditions assessment of indoor and outdoor park and recreation facilities was to consider the current usage and condition of each facility, identify amenity deficiencies, and provide a cost estimate to address those deficiency items, and include a prioritization of recommendations for maintenance and renovation of park and recreation facilities. The project management portion of the agreement was for professional assistance to organize all the data and analysis into an action plan that includes cost estimates and prioritization. Project management also includes delivering a summarized final document to the Parks and Recreation Commission and Town Council for review and potential adoption. As of today, MAC5 in collaboration with RHAA Landscape has been paid $31,000 and change of a total $74,000 contracted amount in their professional service agreement. And that is in attachment 1, if you wanted to reference that. Project elements. So far we've completed our community needs assessment survey, the community engagement portion, which is the 2 workshops, the 2 public meetings, and then an informal survey that related to the public meetings discussions, and then public comment via email and shared commission meetings and council meetings, as well as the draft executive summary that the subcommittee prepared. And that was presented to just the commission. It'll be included as attachment with this presentation to council on April 4th. So currently we're with MAC5 and RHA Landscape Architects, and we've got 4 phases left to go. We've completed phase 1 and 2. And we're going to be getting on phase 3 and 4 simultaneously. Phase 1 was the facility conditions assessment, and then we've moved into the prioritization of needs assessment, and then we'll be going into more of the master planning. So that's going to be determining new amenities, developing planning level documents and layouts, and building footprints, and then preparing that action plan that I discussed. That's going to be the deliverable summary. So the discussion tonight, for the purpose of the staff report, is to provide the commission with an overview of Parks and Recreation Master Plan, noting elements accomplished, current work, and expectations for the remaining project. Staff accounted for expenses paid to date, and we listed those up ahead. And then the attachments provided again are working drafts and are intended to provide an example of the work performed so far by MAC5 and RHAA to establish an inventory of parks and buildings, identify facility deficiencies, and prioritization and program opportunities. Attachment 2 provides a summary page for each of the parks and buildings, including a photo, and then their location, size, use, current condition rating, inventory of amenities and facilities, types of recreation currently provided there, constraints, opportunities, code compliance, and additional observations. It's important to note the attachments, especially the draft priority matrix and draft program opportunities seen in attachment 3, will be used as indicators, but not decision makers. So the commission is asked to focus on the process rather than the document details, provide general reactions for the commission, and work performance so far by MAC5 and RHA are encouraged. So we'd love to have your feedback, make sure we're on the right track. And again, during phase 3 and 4, RHAA and MAC5 will be taking those results from the draft prioritization matrix and program opportunity study, along with deficiencies and existing town policies given in the general plan, to generate a list of recommendations. Recommendations will be used to create a planning level layout for each park in Corte Madera Park System. Recommendations are also paired with the estimated costs and a timeline for implementation to create an action plan for the town to use. Phases 3 or 4 will take roughly 2 months to complete, and an updated project schedule is included as attachment 4. So feedback from the commission is requested to understand potential support for the consultants to include additional or undetermined recreation facilities as they make recommendations for locations to incorporate potential program elements. The importance of supporting the identification of alternative locations at the beginning of phase 3 and 4 is to enable the consultants to draft recommendations and develop building footprints for incorporating potential program elements at potential facility locations. For example, what is the support level or feedback on making recommendations towards potentially using opportunities at 508 Tamalpais, which is currently the pet club, and again, Park Madera Center in general. So we're looking for a little bit of feedback on whether as we're going forward with phase 3 and phase 4 and trying to implement opportunities to include all these great programs that have been prioritized, should we be going in that direction and looking at opportunities over there? So introduction of our consultants. We've got consultants on the line. So we've got zoomed in. We've got David and Alyssa. So first off, joining tonight's meeting is David Ross from MAC 5. We also have Barbara Lundberg and Alyssa Gill from RHA Landscape. David, you've met before. He's our senior project manager for MAC 5. David is serving as the lead for the second professional services agreement and is a subject matter expert on both facility conditions assessment and developing on final master plan documents. David can provide more information on what facility condition assessments include, how it can specifically support the work completed to date on the Corte Madera Parks and Recreation Master Plan project through the community needs assessment, workshops, community engagement meetings, and how the assessment can assist in prioritizing and monetizing elements of the completed master plan. And then Barbara Lundberg is a principal of RHAA and has an extensive background in parks and recreation design and master planning. And Alyssa Gill is a project manager with comprehensive experience in project management. Both Barbara and Alyssa can provide more information on the parks assessment and how the assessments and prioritizations exercise inform the action plan, planning level layouts, and incorporation of high level design into the completed master plan. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it. So to the commission, we wanted to know that, are we on the right track? Do you have any feedback on our phases and our steps taken so far and what we have projected going forward? And then also whether we should be looking into those alternative undefined locations.
I know it's quite a bit to digest. If there's any aspect of it that anyone has any questions, I think it would be helpful. I could help walk through and answer any questions that you might have.
I've got a quick question, more of a clarification. So you might understand that it was out of scope on this initial report to be looking at the pet club area. I'm not, what do we call that again?
So Park Madera Center is the shopping center that's adjacent to the community center and borders town park. That is a town-owned property. Those leases are currently active. So there are no units except for the dance studio that we currently operate out of.
I see. And so was that included in the facility assessment, or are you looking for advice?
It has been included in the facility assessment. It's really the question to the commission is if there's support to go forward and having our consultants spend time drafting what it would look like to say reutilize the Park Madera unit at 508 for expanded either classrooms or indoor space based on what our priority matrix is so far. So if we're able to do new programming, we can't fit it into our existing facilities. Should we be looking at alternative facilities that we may have the opportunity to utilize?
How in demand are we for more space for classes and other programs?
Right now, we don't have any breakout rooms at the community center. We're very fortunate to have a great relationship with the Neil Cummins and the school district. So we utilize those campus classrooms, both at Cove and Neil Cummins, for after school programming. But the constraint with that is that we can't operate over there during school hours or during the day. So it limits the demographics that we can serve. So it's perfect for kids right after school to stay on campus and be programmed and served at that time. But we can't do any preschool classes or adults classes because the time constraints. You'll see in one of the matrices that, indoor space is also at a high level need. So there's a number of different ways a unit over there could be utilized. It's just whether we should spend time in identifying the ways it could be utilized to meet the priorities.
Okay, and then one last question, and a rough estimate is totally fine. How much revenue does the town receive with current tenants on a monthly or quarterly basis?
That's a great question. I don't have those rough numbers, as well as I can't remember when the lease is currently up with Corte Madera with Pet Club. It's either 3 to 5 years. So we have time to work on it. We believe it's 5 years. But that is the opportunity cost. So if the town were to be able to take over some of those units and use them for recreation programming, that's going to be the loss of revenue. And so it's going to take a few years for the Parks and Recreation Department to build up a program, as well as the cost to improve said facility. And that's immeasurable at this point.
Thank you.
And we're talking about using the existing buildings, not redeveloping the area.
Yes, for this purpose, we're talking about reutilizing the current footprint. For example, if you walked into 508 Tamalpais, the current use of the Pet Club, it's a very nice, large, open building. It could be divided into classroom spaces with extended bathrooms, or it could be utilized as just an indoor gym or multi-purpose room. There's a number of different possibilities should we decide to pursue that location.
And do you have any feel for if we would have town council support if we wanted to take over that property, or is that putting the cart before the horse?
Well, so we want to come to you first for what your guidance and direction and support for pursuing those areas. Essentially, my plan is to present the same staff report with a summary of your feedback and discussions had at this meeting. And that discussion will happen with council on the 4th of April.
I think considering that property is directly adjacent to the park and its proximity to the rec center, I think we should at least examine it and see what it would take. Otherwise, we don't even understand what we're really considering.
And I think the emphasis right now is to make that decision whether to just explore it. It's no commitment to taking it on or doing anything. It's just if we miss the opportunity to pursue options over there now, coming back later would be a whole new professional service agreement.
Yeah.
Now, are we looking at also doing improvements to the community center and that property, or one or the other?
So right now we're looking at everything. I don't know that we're looking at a lot of changes for the community center based on the feedback that we've received. I think through the community engagement process, I think there's things that can be improved. You'll see that there's different ways that we can improve the community center based on the constraints and opportunities listed on the summary pages. And it just depends on what we intention of utilizing that facility going forward.
Well, I think it makes sense to look at, what it would take to, improve that property and use that property in conjunction with what we're doing at the community center to balance things, rather than, like what you're saying, revisit it later and create a whole new project.
Yeah, I agree. So for me, one of the things that could be just that I like this format. So on the evaluation factor scoring notes, what's helpful in the way my brain works is that it seems here this is a little bit of a synthesis of community feedback and priorities with some cost elements to it, maintenance, or then this total sort.
Which page are you looking at?
I was going to say, but it's as 1 of 2, so they're all
2, 1 of.
Yeah, it's right after.
It's the prioritization matrix.
Modulars. You see that?
David said it's the prioritization matrix. What's
Okay.
the
We
first
just don't
line on it?
remember.
So we
Got
can all
it.
get on the same page.
Pickleball courts.
Keep
Pickleball
going.
courts. So
Pickleball
the
courts.
park system programs.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep, still maybe one more. Yeah, I think we're getting.
Here. Maybe.
Looks like it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what is helpful for me is if I'm reading this correctly, so it's, this first line is this community priority, and that's from the survey and outreach. And whether its needs are met, ongoing demand, there's this element of revenue. I assume that's what we're talking about with respect to the, with the lack of tenant of rent, if we use that particular the area. And then there's, construction costs. So obviously, like you can see, I imagine I would have thought the pool, for example, would be very high on that. But then I started losing the thread and wasn't sure how to read this correctly. So I see here the initial construction cost. Am I reading this wrong? But the pool would be,
So David, would you like to
Oh.
explain how those are weighted? So those are the low.
Sure, yeah, the two that are indicated with the inverse in parentheses are done so because they are an inverse relationship to their value in scoring. So a high cost
There we
and
go.
a high maintenance cost results in a low score.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. I
And
see that.
that's why the word inverse is included in there. It's just as a reminder, because it's really easy to forget when you're, scoring these things and evaluating them, to remember that those are inverse relationships.
Got it. And then, so I know, or at least I think I heard Ashley say we weren't sort of getting into the weeds about the actual data within just yet, but to the extent this format is helpful for any of the other commissioners, it's very helpful for me. But even more, a 2 for construction and how that weights in. I like to see more data for me, and it's the reality of the world. Understanding the costs is a really helpful component. I sometimes find that I'd love more data. I'd love lots of things, but it's really helpful for me to be able to focus our energy and time on the things that are the most bang for the buck, that the community wants the most, but also are within the realm of possible. If it's not even possible, then that's not where I would focus my energy as much as I love more information. So I don't know, is anybody, you guys think this format of sort of synthesizing like desire, cost in this matrix is helpful?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was taking a close look at that because, there's some low cost things like food trucks that are highly desired. Cultural events, those, the events, and also events done by others, 4th of July event, and park event 9, Oktoberfest 7, summer concerts 8. Those are highly desirable and are, I believe, not much cost to the town. Yeah, I agree.
So if we like this format, could we ask for maybe sort of a little more meat on the bones, right? Like, I get the principle behind a 2, and now I'm on board with the inverse allocation of that number, but like,
So if you look up at the top of the screen, so the extra part of it, that tries to give a little bit more background of how it was weighted. And really, and David can dive into it a little bit more. This is a tool that he's utilized in a number of projects. So Tim and I and the consultants all sat together at one time and went through everything based on what our feedback is on all the weighting and pulling information that was referenced in the last general plan, pulling survey data, and then what their industry knowledge is of expenses as far as revenue and potential costs and ongoing. So they helped drive how we organize those values.
got it. Well, and
really
so I think the premise is helpful, but for example, I don't know, like if we couldn't afford anything that's a 6 or below, like I just don't know then to put the practical overlay onto this. So I get the relative weight and how you guys, the process went. I don't know how we take it to the next step.
David, do you want to jump in?
Well, I think it's really a tool to help everyone kind of break down what's behind an opinion. It's really trying to break down the factors that are contributing to someone's opinion with each of those evaluation factors. And it's really helpful to break it down because You know, a lot of times you hear someone say, well, I like that and I don't like that. Well, this digs a little deeper and gives you a little more insight into what's driving those opinions. And this is not a, you know, this is a tool. This is not as Ashley mentioned earlier, this isn't a decision maker. So because something prioritizes a little higher than something else, it isn't the end all be all decision making, you know, winner and loser declaration. It's just giving you an indication of how these are scoring and how and what the factors are that are contributing to that. So if at some point someone wanted to increase the emphasis on low cost opportunities, and we could reweight or rescore this matrix with greater emphasis on the cost aspect of it or the revenue aspect of it, and the numbers will change a little bit. They won't change dramatically, but they will change if that becomes a higher priority. Right now, they're all weighted as up at 5. So they are the potential revenue is weighted at 5, so that it's recognizing that that's a very important aspect of these program elements, is that they can generate revenue. Some of them can. Some don't generate any revenue. Now, the ones that do generate revenue, sometimes they end up costing as well. So between the potential revenue and the 2 cost categories, that's a significant part of the overall evaluation. The reason that 2 cost factors are weighted at 3 apiece is because since there's 2 of them, if they were weighted at 5, they would kind of overwhelm the potential revenue aspect of it. And then you'd lose a little kind of perspective on, money in, money out. You certainly want to recognize and award the potential revenue. So those 3 kind of work together in terms of the revenue and the cost of these program elements. Now, if at some point the town needed to put a ceiling on how much they could spend, and I think I'm sort of hearing that there may be, some of these may just be out of reach. That'll come to play in when we establish the cost estimates of some of these potential, because we're looking at the program elements, and then the next matrix, we're identifying where the opportunities are to provide for them. And then in the next phase, we evaluate what are the design opportunities for master planning these parks and buildings, and then what are the costs. So we do get to that in this master plan, where we actually provide cost estimates for these various program implementations, and there are costs associated with actually putting them in a park and getting them up and running, and it'll be useful at that point to begin to say how much you want the cost element to influence final decisions on moving projects forward, because that's obviously a real issue. And a lot of times that'll go along hand in hand with identifying funding opportunities and, evaluating, at a time frame that some of these projects may not be feasible in the short term, but maybe they're a hope and dream that they can be in the longer term. So you wouldn't want to necessarily throw them out, but you may need to include them in a longer range plan and see if the funding and the public will and ability to do it is able to come to fruition.
Ashley, I have just a couple of questions on the evaluation factors, and the inclusion of a couple. The 2009 general plan, why would we include that as a evaluation factor?
Because it's the last guiding document that the town has completed.
But
There was parks and recreation related items that were supposed to be included as guiding principles in that.
okay, but that is distinct from the established policy preferences.
Yes.
So it's kind of the old policy preferences and the.
Yeah, I think that's
Well,
really what it
happened
comes
since
down
two
to.
thousand and nine.
Yeah,
And then the next column is really if you've had a discussion at the commission level or council level.
Mhm.
For example, if we think about both the research into community swimming pools as well as artificial versus natural. And that's where that is weighted based on, since we've done all this community engagement, what additional direction has commission and council made? That's why they're separate columns.
I get it. I just don't know if the 2009 is still relevant, given how long ago that was.
It's still our current document from the town.
Okay.
And I know Alyssa dove in pretty deep on making the connections to that. Alyssa, if you had anything else that you wanted to provide in addition to that, or from your experience in tying it to general plans.
I would say that given the nature of the 2009 general plan, a lot of the policies that were established that we have included when making considerations for this exercise, these are policies that I imagine would be adopted into a next iteration of a general plan. So many of them have to do specifically with ideas of maintenance as well as just inclusivity for all ages and abilities. And so these are while they are, policies that have been enacted in 2009, they are something that I imagine Corte Madera would continue into the future. With the other general plans that I have been exposed to, especially if you look at, a 2020 compared to a 2040 general plan, there a lot of times towns have just adopted policies and made minimal changes when bringing them into the next phase of the plan.
I mean, we have a couple that are quite different between those two. Many that are very much the same. So just, I didn't know if it was excess noise as we calculated. And then similarly, like ongoing demand and extent of service in area seem somewhat related to me. As the ongoing demand is related to lack of other places to do it, but I didn't know how to think about ongoing demand of if this need being serviced by town parks and rec versus just serviced at all.
I believe the intention is the ongoing demand is what we're hearing from our community members and our users versus the extent of service area.
I had just a quick question regarding the community engagement. I see here you did a couple of workshops and some public meetings. I was just kind of curious on what kind of turnout and how active the community came forward to get some of this data. Do you have any?
That was before their time, so I can answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was when the subcommittee and I were working with gathering community additional community feedback following the survey. So I think that was 2021 that we were doing most of that work. So we had some stakeholder meetings. That was an invitation, making sure that we were capturing a variety of demographics as well as segments of our community, affiliations with different organizations. So we had 2 of those meetings via Zoom, and then December and January we've had 2 public meetings via Zoom. The first one, I can't remember how many people we had now. I don't have access to the internet, but I've got it on our project page of what the attendance was on that. And we had a much bigger turnout on the first meeting than the second meeting, which actually kind of played it differently. So we were able to do polls on the first one, and then the second one we had breakout rooms, and the second one we were able to keep everybody in one room. So we had a little bit more of in-depth conversations on different topics. But those were we had a lot of conversation on, the opportunities of incorporating or changing or updating the community center versus what we should pursue over at Park Madera Center, as well as improving the fields and restrooms. So those were our 3 major topics. We didn't talk a lot about public swimming pools in these Zoom meetings because we talked about them in the stakeholder meetings and there wasn't a lot of discussion about it.
Gotcha. And all that information, is that the same surveys referenced in the master plan that we reviewed last year? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. I remember. And you're pretty confident you're happy with the results and.
Yeah, I think we've exhausted that phase of the community engagement.
So I know I sort of jumped right into, I guess, future looking or potential development projects and intend to skip over the assessment of existing facilities and whatnot. I wonder if we can maybe talk about that a little bit. And then also,
dreams and desires aside, yeah, I did notice several times ADA upgrades were noted to be either to bring ourselves into code compliance or just, to make sure that everybody has access to these things. Is there any sort of guiding principle about doing that first, or where does that sit in the allocation of moving forward?
David, you want to go for that? Oh, you're on mute still.
David, you're on mute.
Thank you.
Excited to answer.
Yeah, I can address that from an ADA perspective and a code perspective. So the ADA was a federal law initially. It's now been incorporated into California Building Code. So ADA requirements are now code requirements. Generally, they're a heightened code requirement because they still are under the federal law that can bring lawsuits for noncompliance. So they're a little bit different than code requirements in that you can always be sued for lack of ADA compliance. And that drives a lot of what cities and municipalities are trying to address. It's the right thing to do. B, there is strong motivation to comply to meet the needs of the community and to protect the interests of the town. So they're a pretty high priority. And then once you begin to do any project, a remodel, renovations, the code kicks in and it becomes a requirement to meet full accessibility requirements. So they work hand in hand between, basically doing the right thing, avoiding legal liability, and then eventually meeting the code intent once you actually start any kind of project. So they're a very high priority.
Yeah, and so I was wondering both if you could speak to that and then just generally for the existing facilities, and then also if that bringing sort of up to ADA compliance is factored into the cost assessment of any of these particular sort of future projects to the extent that they touch upon existing areas. I just wasn't sure if that was factored in, because that sometimes I know is
it would definitely will be. So with the assessments, we've done a list of a variety of types of deficiencies for all of the parks and buildings. And one of the categories of deficiencies is ADA accessibility. So once we've and what you're seeing here is really just the overview of that. We have a lot more data, a lot more detail in a full-blown deficiency report for each park and each facility that would literally take us hours to go through.
Our intention is those will be included as a future appendices when we're going diving into everything. Absolutely, fully disclosed. This is just the intention of the staff report is really to share where we've been, what we're doing right now, and where we're going.
Yeah. And I didn't want to delve too deeply in, but in sort of asking for directions or whatnot, I wasn't sure what had already been explored and was coming, or okay, so that's coming more.
Oh yeah, no, they're including the costs associated with them. So all of the deficiencies are actually priced at this point. So that we've got all the information on all the deficiencies: architectural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and ADA and structural. So we've got all those categories that are identified and priced.
So I'm wondering, are you also assessing what kinds of events can happen where, and what would need to be done with in order to accommodate the needs or the lack of infrastructure? So for example, let's say food trucks have come up and food trucks have been looked at Menke Park, and gosh, there's not a lot of parking there. It's not a lot of space, but what about Town Park? Are you going to be making some recommendations as to where and what makes most sense? Where are some of our high priority events, the things the community wants to do, where they would best be held and served?
It's next.
Yeah, we've taken a first pass at that at a matrix level, and then the next phase is actually testing them. So if you look at the program prioritization matrix, we have all the various additional program elements that have been identified as high priority in the survey and public outreach and have been kind of ranked in the prioritization matrix. We cross that with the potential locations for all of these program elements and give them a ranking of either a blank, which just means they just aren't relevant or aren't applicable, to a 1 through a 3, with a 3 being the highest ranking opportunities for housing the program elements. And then in the master planning, we'll look at this and we'll start pursuing mostly the 3s, because that means they're optimal. But there are also 2s and 1s that will be considered as we're doing this, because one of the things we'll be struggling with is we have the town park and the rec facility are really the areas that have the most opportunity. But given the extent of the programs that are being evaluated here, they can only hold so much. So we're going to need to be identifying other opportunities in other buildings, other parks, and that's why this 508 Tamalpais came up so fiercely. Was that if you look at the second page of the program prioritization matrix, you can see that the community center is going to be overwhelmed, and we couldn't possibly expand that building enough within the constraints of town park and what the community would allow to house all of these indoor programs. So that's why we've identified the column on the far right as additional recreation facility, potentially 508 Tamalpais, just because there's so much more demand for space than we possibly could accommodate with the existing buildings.
And to clarify, there's a draft lease for 4 years for that.
4 years, okay.
So,
Thank you. That was really helpful.
question, I'm looking through all of the different properties that the town has, and it is occurring to me that, our town park is beautiful, but everything is kind of centered around that. And there's a lot of other properties that are really underutilized. And so I'm happy to hear that we're exploring what we can do with them. But also, I guess my question is, I look at a property like Monkey Park, which is historic and right in the middle of town. And but reading the assessment, it's really not up to code and would take a tremendous effort, it seems, to make it up to code. So are you purely looking at things from a as is perspective, like what can we do with Monkey Park the way it's configured as is, or do we ever get to the point where we say, do we reconfigure this and make it a nice, better usable space for the town?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And that's part of the intent here, is to understand the limitations and the deficiencies of that park that really need to be addressed, so that we can develop recommendations that deal with the deficiencies and the problems with the park, but do so in a way that can potentially accommodate some of these additional program elements as part of the master plan. And it's really the understanding the needs and the existing conditions, why those work together so nicely, so that you can develop projects that reduce your liabilities, address your code your code deficiencies and your ADA deficiencies with improvements that are strategically geared to addressing the needs of the community, not just fix what's broken.
I'd also like to add there that the next phase, you're going to see some high level planning layouts. And so while these do consider potential reconfigurations, it's not necessarily going to be a very detailed design that changes the configuration of Menke Park as it is, especially because it is more of a historic park, and that is important to just continuing to represent the town of Corte Madera's identity. That is something that we are also planning to, in phase 3, consider as we're making these recommendations.
Yeah, so Alyssa's right, and it's really important to understand that the scope of the master plan isn't to redesign each of your parks and buildings. That's done as follow-up phases in as projects. What we're trying to identify is what are the logical projects at these parks and at these facilities, and scoping those to identify, what could be accomplished and what needs to be considered and how much is it likely to cost, so that you can decide which of these projects you want to move forward with in a timeline, and how much you want to bite off and move on in order to proceed with projects, which would then have an entire design phase, each of their own.
Yeah, that makes sense. But with a park like Menke, or a piece of property like Menke Park, I feel like those two go hand in hand, because when you're talking about potential opportunities there, as is, it could be very limiting. But does that make sense? Like, unless you consider redeveloping it now, then how do you know what its opportunities are for potential projects in the future, which is part of the scope we're talking about now?
Yeah, I mean, we're backing up and looking at things like space constraints and adjacencies and noise generation and things that would rule out potential uses, but identifying what it could accommodate with redesign.
Okay.
Sounds like I'm hearing that, at least with respect to that part, you're interested in digging a little bit deeper on potential, whereas generally that's not our plan for all of the facilities and whatnot, but for that particular one, it's a little bit more curiosity.
Well, or like Bayside Park, it's a long stretch of, I think I look at some of these, and in order for them to really be user friendly and for us to really take advantage of them, we have to consider redeveloping them. So I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you can look in in that matrix that's the program opportunities matrix. And if you look at Bayside Park, we've identified several program elements that could go there. And I would encourage you to take a peek if you have an interest in a park and you want to look and see what kind of elements we've actually identified might be there. Take a look. We've identified, I'll just be specific here for a moment, just as an example. We've identified bocce ball courts. We've identified community gardens. We've identified climbing bouldering walls. We've identified a park name signs, which is actually going to be across the board. Local history walks and talks, and memorial bench program. Those are the elements that came to us that we felt could be opportunities at Bayside Park. If any of you feel like we missed something, this is a great opportunity to let us know, because we're going to be jumping in again into phase 3 and 4, where we're starting to test these assumptions. So if anyone, said, oh no, we really need to think about, accommodating one of these other programs, we're all ears. This is just, this is after our assessment with staff going through, and our own, process of evaluation. These are the conclusions, but, we'd love to have input if you feel like we're either missing something or something there you see just really isn't appropriate, or maybe it's just a 1. We put 1s on places where you could do it, but it's probably not necessarily a really good idea. So I think the 3s are really the best opportunities.
So in looking at this, if you just use the park you were looking at, Sarah, Menke Park, it looks like a very desirable park for many different events that are, you know, based around gathering and, yeah, public events,
It's
which,
more of a passive use
Uh-huh.
kind of park, yeah.
David, I have a specific question here related to the athletic field improvements, natural turf. There's a
Mhm.
3 at Granada, but nothing at Cove Park. Is that a typo or is there a part of Granada Park that is more field based than I realized?
Typo, thank you.
Okay, thanks. I haven't spent a lot of time there, so there's more space than I thought. That makes more sense.
When
I
we
think
stare
this-
at these
yeah.
documents too long, we miss things.
Right, just, yeah. I think this is an incredibly thorough and easy to digest set of documents, although it is a lot. There's a lot to cover here.
Yeah.
And as we think about, we're not at the place now, correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley, that we need to make decisions on priorities, but some of the priorities are naturally coming to the surface based on the triangulation of factors of both what the town wants, what we get direction on, what the community has said, as well as what the potential of these various spaces are. So it feels like we've taken something that had a lot of noise and provided some structure to it, which will help us move forward, I think, more holistically.
Yeah.
Appreciate everyone's work today.
Yeah, again, so if you've seen, we just want to know that we're on the right track. If there's anything that you feel is an outlier that's not included, or please, if you find any other typos, please let us know. And then just the support or discussion around, pursuing alternative locations to accommodate all these great things that came up as priorities.
Yeah, so I think the fact that the questions that we asked, location or what we're asking, where does ADA fit in? The fact that that's obviously been considered, maybe not fully fleshed out yet, which is, as I understand where we are in the project, but that suggests to me that you guys are on the right path. I guess the only thing I would say, not to harp on the ADA stuff, is just, I think David already mentioned, sometimes it's, very extensive costs. So to the extent we find out that's so extensive, then I think that means we don't need to go down other paths exploring too much, because they necessarily will not be feasible. And I'm always wanting to spend all of our, limited time and energy and focus on things that we could actually get done for our community. So that's the only thing I'd mention. But otherwise, it looks like you guys are absolutely on the right path. And thank you.
Again, all these documents are draft, as well as, all the documents that led to these. We didn't want to completely overwhelm, because we are trying to take a snapshot of where we are in the process, and you'll have an opportunity again to review all of the data, but they are supposed to be used as indicators that we're moving forward, not decision makers. But yeah, you're helping us decide, through your discussion and your questions, you're helping us prepare for our presentation to council. So we appreciate, anything else that you think that council would want to hear or have as a part of this snapshot as well.
Yeah, I think I was just doubly checking that, the plaza is considered part of town park. And I think that, the opportunity as we connect those spaces feels right for something special, but I think that will be one of those things we flesh out in the details. There is nothing else for me. Anyone else have questions, concerns?
Just had a quick clarification. So the Plaza Park, so the town also owns the office park where the attorney's offices are and
So
things like that?
Town
as well?
Park Plaza is right across from the community center. It's the patio and the trellis and the movie screen and the shade awnings.
So the next building over, is that also town property? It's outlined in that chart and I wasn't
So
aware that. it
All
was
the
as
whole
well.
property over there, and I think it cuts off. I'm not sure
Not
whether.
this. So
Okay,
this
so
is
not
like
that-
the-
so there was-
That's the gas station.
Yeah, there was another
Exactly.
chart that had that included. That's why I was confused.
Yeah, the
Okay.
dance studio, yes,
Yeah.
those pieces, and this is but not the bank, I don't think.
Yeah, and just a word on that, the other building that the dance studio is in is not nearly as flexible or appropriate for adaptive reuse for recreation. It's just a lot more difficult to try and utilize.
That makes sense.
So the real, gem is that is the 408 Tamalpais. That's a long span structure. and
Mhm.
has tremendous flexibility and volume that can meet a variety of needs with an adaptive reuse.
So,
So I see what you're asking, the difference between these two pages and the outlines are different.
Yes, yeah, there's a
Yeah.
little inconsistency there.
And so what does the yellow marking mean as distinguished by these blue ones?
so yeah, it's whether every building in this yellow space counts as town property or just some of them.
And thank you. So you're looking at, so Alyssa, that was one of the pages that I had conversation that I was hoping to clarify with you. And that's the difference. I think, I can't remember what the page numbers are on here, but it's 9 and 10. It's the introduction of town park. The first one has the property lines, the two parcel lines. And that's where the confusion I think is coming over with Corte Madera Center. And I think it just shows these two parcels and not the third parcel potentially. So when you look at the next page and it includes the yellow outline where it defines the school district property, all of those, there was 3 properties that were being discussed on the previous page. So the omission of essentially everything at Corte Madera Center is just on this page. It just happens to show 2 parcels rather than 3. And we're going to merge those 2 documents to make it a little
Yeah.
less complicated.
We'll clean that up.
Even like the boundary, like the street along the side, it looks like it is and isn't different. So that's just a manual, like just will be cleaned up rather than it was a fine distinction that was deliberately being made. Okay.
Thank you.
So we have completed questions. We now go to public comment and then we can come back for commission discussion. So Rebecca, do we have any public comment?
I am not seeing any raised hands, but we did receive an emailed public comment with a recommendation that we number the pages before it goes to council. So thank you for that, that input. We will make sure that that happens.
Right, closing public comment. Any more discussion from the commission before we move on to the next item?
You said is this draft form, the same form in addition to just sort of a summary of our discussion is being presented to town council?
Yeah, so my intent is to take the same staff report, update it to include the summary of discussions here. And then reference to pursuing the alternative locations. And then I'm going to be adding the draft executive summary that the commission subcommittee had put together because the commission is the only one that has reviewed that at this point.
Got it. Okay. And that's the next meeting or the next two?
April 4th.
All right, got it. Great.
Right.
And then does
No
this come
action
back
today.
to us at any time? Like what's the next step if
Yes.
it's even known?
So going forward, the plan is to go through the next phases 3 and 4 at the same time. And then it'll come back to the commission for review. It'll always come to the commission first for review and then recommendation to council before it goes to council for review and potential approval
Got it. Okay.
or adoption.
And is there a timeline, or at least a projected timeline for phases 3 and 4?
They should take about 2 months.
Great. Yes, that's great. And it sounds like, is the recommendation that you're taking just to explore additional locations?
We're not
or?
taking any recommendation.
Oh, sorry, I thought,
Discussion.
got it.
Yep,
That's
no
what I meant.
action
But the
items tonight on
discussion,
this
the
one.
discussion is about additional location. Okay.
Great, and I do not believe we vote on that business item. All right, moving on, discuss commission strategic planning goals based on the 2023 town council work plan.
It's taking me a minute to sort through my next one. All right. So first off, discussion, the subject is discussion commission strategic planning and goals based on the 2023 town council work plan for staff. Typically, the commission reviews and creates goals annually. Last year, we skipped it because we were focusing on the master planning project and took that as our goals. And then this year we deferred by 1 month because we wanted to have council adopt the staff work plan so that we can really look at what our direction is from the council level and then more focus on the commission looking at the items and how to achieve them. And if you had any other suggestions. So if we want to just look into later in the document under the discussion, we have just the park and recreation related items here for you. In the attachment, there's the full-blown townwide, but there's a lot of very nice goals out there, but just wanted to focus for your consideration on just parks and recreation related. So again, under categories, kind of just give a quick background. We've got fiscal sustainability for category 1, climate action adaptation and preparedness, town operations, diversity, equity, inclusion, and community responsiveness. Category 2 is infrastructure maintenance and improvements, community events and involvement, customer service, land use planning and economic development, town facilities and amenities that's related to maintenance and improvements. And then category 3 is quality of life issues, which is generally parks and recreation, everything, and then everything else. So really looking at below is that the discussion for tonight, Parks and Recreation Commission is asked to receive the 2023 staff work plan approved by Town Council on March 7th and discuss Commission strategic planning and goals based on the plan. The Commission is asked to consider 1, identifying means to support the achievement of Parks and Recreation related elements in that work plan, and 2, identify strategic planning goals in addition to the approved work plan or provide any additional direction you see fit. So focusing first on our category 1 item, which is under diversity, equity, inclusion. It's continued to develop and promote town scholarships program for recreation program and events. And some of the strategies to achieve that we've identified there are listed, as well as what our progress is. But if we look at these items and you have additional strategies, please let us know and we'll make notes to go forward with that. And do we want to go one step at a time?
That makes sense. to me.
All right, so the first one, is there any addition for our DEI connection there? The website webpage has been created. We're in the process of securing additional funding from Town Council through the adoption of the budget. That'll be including $10,000 for that. In progress for securing additional funding through donations, as well as marketing the program to increase community awareness.
Nothing on the scholarship, but I wanted to see if there was another item under category 1 that is actually related to the volunteers who participate in the commission. The recent return to in person, which I believe is a statewide mandate, is something that actually makes it difficult for people who commute long distances, travel for work, have childcare needs and whatnot. So at whatever possibility it is for us to take back to Town Council or request some kind of potential legal review of that requirement, I think would allow more people to participate from a commission participation perspective to volunteer part of these meetings. I think it's timely as we think about we're not too far from needing potentially new folks, and we haven't been able to have a quorum of full people in person since returning to in person.
That feedback.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Where as the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion is up, at any time that comes up, I think, the shiny silver lining and what the pandemic taught us is there are ways to do it. And I think the California government code is a little bit antiquated in this. I understand that we have to follow it, but there's also mechanisms internally where we can speak to our legislators and promote things. And I think any opportunity we have to do so is something that I think is low hanging fruit as far as what we can do. It doesn't cost anything to engage in that capacity. And I think it's really great to allow people to participate. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Alvin.
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem. Moving into infrastructure maintenance and improvements. This is a category 2, and this is a collaboration between Public Works, Park and Rec, and Planning and Building. And the topic is to complete approval process and procurement for town park restroom structure. Given that also there's probably more of a 12-month lead time rather than a 9 to 12 months now. So far, we've already done the community engagement, and then the design review for the Planning Commission is going to be on April 11th. Today, the outline was put at Town Park as well as the public notice. Yes, it's going to rain a lot tomorrow, so all of that will be replaced right after it, but go ahead and go out there and check it out. The footprint is actually a lot smaller than I thought it would look there. It fits really nicely.
It's wonderful.
So check it out. So again, that'll go out to the Planning Commission for their first review on April 11th. And then following that, hopefully the first meeting in May for council consideration. And then town council review and approval of that funding. I mentioned that's going to be a May agenda item. And then placing the order as soon as possible after that approval of funding. Is there any other strategic steps related to that topic? Okay, moving on. Adopt the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. I know we all want to see that happen. And prioritize those projects for implementation. For example, facility enhancement and new projects, facility maintenance and addressing deficiencies. And so far, our strategies to achieve is summarize the project process through phase 1 and phase 2 with the consultants, and we are presenting that to you tonight. We did, and then for council on April 4th. Kicking off phases 3 and 4, we're just beginning that process. Present the draft of the completed master plan to the Parks and Recreation Commission for feedback and recommendation to council, not yet scheduled, hopefully within 2 months. And then present the draft to town council following your recommendation. Any other steps?
Super.
All right, moving on, field improvement. So field maintenance, implement enhanced athletic field maintenance and consider long-term options for maintaining field quality and usability with natural grass surfaces as part of the recreation and master plan process. And this is a collaboration between Parks and Rec and Public Works. And this has got the longest items for us. So incorporating a soil amendments, that's new in the process for maintenance, that's been accomplished. Introducing pencil tine aeration. There's planning of 2 events for this year. Close the fields for a longer period of time. We're already in the process of that. Pursue approval for grading work on east and west fields, not yet started. That's going to be a larger ticket item that we'll share later, and then going to council for approval. Evaluate the irrigation systems. That'll happen later this spring. Research and incorporating new blend of seeds. That's in progress. We've already had recommendations. Confirm watering restrictions and limitations with Marin Municipal Water District, and irrigate fields to the full stability in 2023. We've been keeping up with those restrictions. And then pursuing tools and equipment to support grass generation and germination. That's in progress. You can think of any other topics or ways that we can achieve that.
Just a question, it mentions regrading. Is putting in a substrate or a subsurface for drainage part of this consideration, or is that a whole other project?
So the regrading would be the big project, and it would include, assessment of the irrigation and the drainage and everything else with it. That would be the assumption. That would be, the grading, so that we're actually, creating the semi mound in the middle, so things can drain off the sides, and making sure that they have a place to drain, as well as the making sure that the soil is able to drain and it's got air circulating through, so that the regermination can happen on an ongoing process, rather than waiting to close the field once a year.
Okay, thanks.
2 maybe not great, but suggestions nonetheless. In terms of partnering with Neil Cummins on a gray water system or a water collection system that could be used to irrigate the grass as we get there, as water isn't an issue this year, but maybe again. And then the second one, which may be kind of a twofer, but if there is any way for those folks who use the athletic field to be part of a community support, community out there, kids pushing seed, whatever, hand weeding if it needs to be, but a way for the community to participate in caring for their fields may create a nice loop of support and care for your park.
So volunteer service opportunities.
As what we're doing is so much greater, and it becomes a lot more expensive, and I don't know if there is an opportunity for folks to volunteer to get outside and push some spreaders around, but
I think it creates a sense of ownership and pride. Yeah.
yes,
This is a topic that people came out about, they were.
people want it done, so maybe they'll
Yeah.
put some sweat equity in. It'd be nice.
And related to that topic, I just wanted to make a note that with respect to the town park master plan and field maintenance schedule, the town council indicated that staff and consultants should forego any additional analysis related to artificial surfaces or turf as part of its assessment of improvements to the town's athletic fields. Town council indicated that it sought to only focus on natural grass surfaces as part of the maintenance and improvement programs. It did not wish to discuss artificial surfaces at upcoming council.
Thank you.
I just realized I for my benefit, Liz, I know we were taking this line by line and chatting. I don't know if there was any public comment or anything in between along the ways that we should be asking for. Or if we're gonna be
Maybe at
going
the
back
end
to
of-
that.
at the end of the
Yeah,
business
I think
item?
we were taking it in chunks. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
but- Talking right over someone.
All right, community events and improvement. This is a category 2. Pilot project to review and approve annual special events at Minky Park. Together as a calendar of events rather than a one-off, with work with stakeholders to plan ahead for approval and scheduling of annual events. And this intention was that we know that we've got some annual events that happen up there. We've got the summer concert series, then we've had, informally, more of a fall series extension. We've had some menorah lighting events. We've had in the past Oktoberfest. Just acknowledging that we've got a lot of requests up there, and we wanted to give the opportunity for council to kind of look what the scheduled plan is for the year, as well as give a notice to the businesses and the neighbors to kind of plan accordingly and know what that financial cost is to the town, as far as, what kind of staff time that is incorporated in some of those, as far as blocking off the parking lot and preparing for those such events. Right now, I'm in the process of collecting special event applications, but I've only got them from the Community Foundation. They've been on it, so they're good to go, and we're working on the rest of them.
Do those templates for closures and kind of the special request forms include things like food trucks? I know that has been certain things have been harder to do in the past. Is there an opportunity for us to streamline that part of the request process?
Well, there is going to be a different topic that's about the special events permit process. So yes,
Okay.
hold your excitement.
Okay. Very excited.
So really just about this one, because I've worked for different agencies where there's been like a master calendar of legacy events that go out there and the community gets to celebrate it. And it's on this great document that's circulated around town at the chambers, visitor bureaus. And I wanted to kind of take a step moving in that direction.
And when you said you've heard from one, you're requesting applications.
Yes.
That almost suggested to me it's like we're trying to fill an event rather than.
Well, we know that the applications will come.
Oh.
We were just trying to get them in advance rather than like 2 weeks before the
Got it.
scheduled date.
That's
We're just trying to work in the right direction. So we've got a really good vetting process and making sure that everyone's safe and everyone has to go.
Got it. Okay.
Another one, continuing to enhance 2022 community events programming. We've applied for the intergenerational funding through the county, and we did receive word today that we received $5,000 towards those through that event series. Expand the event programming to include 2 music and movie nights. We've done so. Last year it was 2. Now we've got 3 planned. As well as expand the collaboration on events. We have worked out with Larkspur Recreation, so we're providing the 2 egg hunts in collaboration. We've also worked with Age Friendly Corte Madera and the 2 PTO groups, one at Neil Commons, one at Cove, to support us through the music and movie event series. Again, collaborating with Age Friendly to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to make it more intergenerational, get families out there. What we had last year was it was the first time we would been in the park to have the events or the outdoor dance party. And we really saw all ages come together. So we just wanted to really play to some of the strengths that we saw last year.
So nice.
I have a comment on the one above, the community events and involvement strategies to achieve maybe continuing the continuation of some of the events and the support of these events. For instance, Oktoberfest or the concerts or 4th of July, that Park and Recs have support as needed or partner with these organizations if possible in order to, like, for instance, Oktoberfest. I know some of the slowness in the application coming, I think, from that organization. Beautification Committee is not having resources to do activities for children, which have traditionally been offered there prior to the pandemic. And I'm wondering, often some of these events, people think the Park and Rec Department is actually the one sponsoring it. I know through the master plan survey that a lot of that came up. A lot of people thought, oh, that's a Park and Rec activity. But I think it would be nice if Park and Rec did more to support some of those activities to ensure that they continue and that the resources be there let's say, to provide a tent for community activities at 4th of July or at Oktoberfest. If that helps parents be able to attend and the people organizing that event be able to successfully have it.
And my understanding, pre-COVID is that there has been a collaboration on some of the services provided, like the kinder area, for Oktoberfest, as well as, stuff this last year. We're out there supporting the kids booths and activities at the 4th of July. And that's just, I think it's an improved communication between, the Chamber of Commerce and Beautification Committee and what they want. It is hard to get staffing. Last year with 4th of July being on a Monday, most of our part-time staff were gone for the weekend. This year being on a Tuesday, hopefully it'll be a little bit easier because we do have camp on Monday. So hopefully that's improved. But I think in just my observation, I think we have an opportunity to create more creative engagement opportunities for our youth attending some of those events. And I think that's also an important element for the groups that are requesting special event applications and what they're requesting. Because that's going to go again for council's review of, what is the real staff cost of participating and collaborating with these events. So I think it's really helpful element.
Yeah, and they're high demand events. They're really important events for our town. Yeah.
Any other achievables on either of those two? Customer service, category 2. This is a collaboration between administration, Parks and Rec, and Public Works, and that's streamlining the special event permitting process. So kind of all collaborating with or going through with the first two items. Strategies to achieve so far: simplifying and recreating the special event application process, and that's in progress. We have a very antiquated form right now. Old PDF that doesn't have fillable. We've got some items that people skip over. It's going to be creatively collaborating with other jurisdictions to get an examples of what their well-run application. Everyone's applications are completely separate, but if we can have like a separate addendum to if you're running a parade or if you're running a running race or a biking race, then it'll make that initial application a little bit easier. So that's in progress. Review and draft review approval process for department directors. That's not started quite yet. Establishing templates for closures for Mickey Park and traffic management plans. Right now, for the special event process, application process, the hardest element is to develop templates for closures and traffic management plan. Because if you are a citizen and you want to host a block party, it's not in your normal wheelhouse to think of what's my traffic plan and what's my closure. Nor is it mine as the Parks and Recreation Director. It really relies a lot on, Public Works's expertise. So then it takes a little bit more time. But if we can create some templates, say for closure at Mickey Park, or how you close for a block party, which the block party one, we do have a template already. It'll make it a lot easier for people to host and facilitate these opportunities. And then communicating the special event application process to the community, service organizations, and to the chamber is going to be really important. And we're trying to do that now. So we've had a few different things pop up and had the opportunity to educate and collaborate on what the process and steps are.
So you answered my question. That includes block parties and road races. Does that also include reservations at Town Park?
So the reservations at Town Park is a little bit different. So just to recap for the commission, that if you rent a picnic area, there's capacities at each table. If you do roughly 8 to 10 people per table, that's the capacity for that area. We don't have any large picnic areas right now, which hopefully that will come out as opportunities in our master plan for some large group picnic areas. But if you're not allowed to bring any outside equipment, so no tents or awnings or extra tables and chairs, because it exceeds that area and exceeds what services are related to it. So trash receptacles, recycling, things like that. And then it starts, bleeding out into the park area. So right now, if somebody wants to have, say, a balloon arch or wants to bring in tables or chairs or just an easy up, they go through kind of like a very moderated version of a special event, just kind of asking a little bit more questions and maybe having consideration for additional insurance. So it's separate.
I got some feedback that it's different than it was 2 years ago and very cumbersome. None can be done online, or it must all be done online and none in person.
The application is available online and it can be provided in person as well.
Okay.
And it's both bilingual now.
Okay. I have a PowerPoint that someone put together for me to complain about it, so I will share that with you. So how many steps were involved with
Sure, we
getting.
have bilingual applications.
Okay, yes, I will let this person know that they could have done it in Spanish.
You know,
Um,
actually, you mentioned something about, questions asked or a special event
Mhm.
in making the templates. Is that? My ears perked up with that. Is that like, does council go through the new templates to see what we?
We
what
don't
we're
usually
asking
have
people, or-
commissioner or council review, but we do have our city attorney.
That's what I meant.
Yes.
Sorry, council with
Yeah,
a.
sorry, your other kind of.
Yeah,
council.
yeah.
Your
Not
CIL.
CIL, yeah, not a CIL ending, sorry, yeah. Yeah, does the city attorney look through the templates? Okay, because I'm just curious, like, ooh, what questions are we asking that could elicit a yes or a no?
Well, for
response?
example, our current and outdated form requires or lists that it's required to have it certified. Like we don't have to have it
Oh.
certified.
Okay.
So things just need to be updated.
Mhm. Yeah, great. Good.
Anything else that the commission feels that is a strong goal or priority as your goal setting and strategic planning? Since we haven't really done this exercise before.
I mean, I mentioned it with field maintenance, but any ways that we can get folks in the community to participate in being part of the solution and having that kind of ownership, so that they're not just that they're stewards of parks and not just users of parks.
I think the solution is going to be bigger than what our community is able to do, but maybe maintenance once it's done.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a big
yeah.
project, not something that we can count on the community to help fix, but once it's done, the maintenance and
Things like
care
we
of
could
it.
do park cleanup days on July the 5th. Like we could have small community events where people come and participate and.
There's been park cleanup days, for example, in Santa Fe and Petaluma, they've gone through different things like that. Petaluma had a very good and well attended program, whereas Santa Fe was a little bit harder. I know when I began the Albert Park Improvement Project, there was neighborhood groups that would come out quarterly, and they did like a big thing with breakfast and spread and all that. And it was helpful, but it was helpful also because they knew that there was going to be an end to it.
Mhm.
So I think keeping something like that up is a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But not to say it's not impossible. We have very dedicated participants, especially our soccer users.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for any public agency, getting good public participation is always difficult. You post a notice and you get some folks that are super active, and then when you finally have gone through the process, and we all know how long it takes, and then you finally put a shovel in the ground and people are like, wait, what is happening here? And there's sort of, surprise. So I do think any opportunity or thoughts anybody has creatively to get people involved, I'm for.
Yeah. Any public comment, Rebecca?
I am not seeing any raised hands and refreshing the email, and there were no emailed public comments received.
All right, so moving on to our third business item.
We did have an action item.
Oh.
Let's just back that up. Sorry, I didn't tee you up well enough.
Sorry.
So we've got three options.
Mhm.
One, identify means to support the achievement of Parks and Recreation Department related items, and elements of the work plan. Two, identify strategic planning or goals in addition to approval to the approved plan, or provide additional directions to staff. It sounds like I've taken some notes on a couple of additions.
Yes, I think we. Okay to move forward with those recommended additions. Do we need to vote? Rebecca, can I get a motion to,
Can I just share what additions are you taking note to include?
So under field maintenance, collection of gray water, pursue options and possible collaborations with Neil Cummins. And then the second one was volunteering opportunities with the community users.
And for the diversity, equity, and
Yes.
inclusion.
yes,
Flexible meetings, the ability to attend via Zoom.
correct. Can we get a motion to proceed with those three amended items?
I'll make a motion to proceed with the three amended items.
Is there a second?
So yes, second.
Excellent. Rebecca, can we get a vote, please?
Commissioner Brown is absent. Commissioner Elson,
Yes.
Commissioner Koenig, absent. Commissioner Phipps,
Yes.
Commissioner Rose,
Yes.
Commissioner Blumling is absent. Vice Chair Charlie
Yes.
and Chair Miles.
Yes. All right. Item number 5C, discussion options for role of youth commissioner and possible commission membership reconfiguration. Discussion and direction staff.
Thank you,
Hi,
Chair
Rebecca.
Miles and Commissioners. I will stand up here so I'm not hiding away from you in the back row. I'm here tonight to discuss your thoughts on potential options for reconfiguring the makeup of the commission and the role of the youth commissioner within that commission. As I touched on briefly this past year, the current commission in its current configuration has 8 members, and it's the ordinance forming the commission allows for it to have no fewer than 5 nor more than 7. We were unclear at the time how that came to be. The commission was started back in 1952, and as far back as I'm able to find, it had a youth commissioner in various capacities going back to the early 1990s, if not possibly earlier. There was a change to the state law at one point that didn't allow for a youth commissioner to have a voting role, but then that changed. And as you can see in 2005, by the attached minutes that I found, the commission was asked, and then the council was asked to allow the youth commissioner to be a voting member. And at the time in 2005, it was agreed to absorb that member as a 7th member because they had a current vacancy. And I don't know at what point between 2005 and when I started in 2014, they grew to 8 members, but it is contrary to the ordinance. We have some options for fixing that, and I just wanted to lay out the options for you and let the commission discuss and see how we should proceed, given it is, as I think Chair Miles noted, it's time for the annual application period. So we can recruit, we can adapt this on the fly, but changes do need to be made to the commission sooner rather than later. But they can also be adaptable and flexible, and we can sort of try a few things or grow with it and maybe attempt having a youth advisory committee and a senior advisory committee and advisory members, depending on what you think would be best for the commission and for getting input from various sectors of the community. Option 1 would be to maintain the current youth commissioner as an appointed voting member, which would be counted in quorum. And to achieve that, we would either reduce adult members to 6 in order to appoint the youth commissioner when a qualified application is received. So you could have the flexibility to go back and forth between 7 adult members, 6 adult members, 1 youth commissioner, or possibly recommend an ordinance to ask the town council to recommend an ordinance to increase the size of the commission to 8 to accommodate that youth commissioner as a voting member, or possibly increase it to 9 as comments were received from the public in the past, that it would be also good to consider having a senior commissioner on the body. So if you did want to expand the size of the commission to 8 or 9, you could have a youth commissioner and a senior commissioner. Option 2 would be, instead of appointing a youth commissioner, instead consider soliciting applications for a youth advisor, and then also potentially senior advisor or advisors if you received more than 1 application. And then the youth and senior advisors could participate in multiple subcommittees and would provide input to the commission via what's called an advisory vote. So when you would take the vote of the commission that would count toward the passage of the vote, you would poll the youth advisors and the senior advisors to get input on how they would vote or what their thoughts are in any particular matter before the commission. The benefit of that is that they would not be required for the quorum. And it is also a benefit that you could have a youth and senior input on your various subcommittees, where right now, having the youth commissioner participate in all of the subcommittees could potentially run into Brown Act violations, because then that also reduces the membership or the opportunities for the other commissioners to participate on those subcommittees. So it is important to have the youth input and the senior input on all of those subcommittees in order for you to get valid input. So that is one thing to consider, was if they are advisory roles, then they would not, it would not constitute a Brown Act violation to have them participate in as many committees as they were able to participate in. So now that I am probably losing my voice a little bit, those are the options. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on them. I was working with the town attorney on several possible updates to the ordinances for all of our boards, commissions, and committees. So once we determined how this commission felt about going forward with any changes that would need to be made, they would be wrapped up in the other ordinances that we would be bringing forward to council. So it's not an urgent request. It's just one that needs to be thought of now while we have the opportunity to make this correction going forward with the new application process.
Rebecca, during your tenure, how often have we had more applicants than seats?
I don't believe it's happened that we've had more applicants than available seats for the youth commissioner. You're speaking just in terms of the youth
No, for
commissioner?
the youth commissioner and for the adults.
There have been several.
Okay.
Several years where we've had more applicants than available seats.
Okay.
I'd
So
say about half.
So,
the time.
yeah, so from the adult side, we've had more opportunity.
Correct.
We have not always been able to fill well, it hasn't been competitive to fill the youth voting member.
It has not, and the attendance of the youth commissioner does get sporadic, especially if it's exam time or toward the end of the year or over the summer. It's difficult to fit a night meeting into a busy schedule for anyone, let alone a student.
Yeah, that's my instinct because of that, because of the quorum issues and the subcommittees and Brown Act, is that it feels weird coming out of my mouth to suggest like less voting rights for somebody, but in this capacity, or I think it would actually promote the more participation and ability to be flexible with the youth commissioner, but also not to have that count as a quorum if they need to have their exams and whatnot, to not matter in that way, but to also be able to contact them and have them participate as they're able to for a number of different things. I would say to have them moved as non-voting and advisory to amplify the access to them and their voice. That would be my thought.
It would be a bit experimental, and that's almost what I was hoping it would evolve into, would to be this cadre of youth advisors and senior advisors, where you would have a pool of resources and input to tap. And we could send them the packets and get their input and encourage more. I feel like it could potentially, if done correctly, encourage greater public participation.
That's what I'm feeling, because I
But
know
it would
I feel
be-
hampered by like,
Yeah,
It would be a growing process.
yeah.
no, I like the idea of having both a youth and senior commissioner because of, how we're wanting to grow our senior programs and, and the growing population of seniors, and have it at an advisory level, to include more participation from both the senior and youth commission participants. Yeah.
I'd also like to encourage our seniors to apply to be full commissioners. There's
That
no
too.
reason they can't be on the commission.
But it's also possible that their participation through the advisory capacity could grow their interest in
Yeah.
greater participation too, potentially.
Question for a commission seat, is there a minimum age to be a voting commissioner? I mean, do you have to be 18?
Well, the ordinances do say in most cases, you need to be a registered voter of the town of Corte Madera, with the one exception being the youth commissioner.
And that's where, to me, it makes sense to have some sort of youth commissioner or youth advisory council where seniors can be part of the commission. I think experimental to see if it gets more involvement from our senior community, but also how can we get them to sit on the commission too? If we don't do some sort of youth advisory or youth commissioner, then they are somewhat excluded if they're not 18 and of voting age. The senior piece, you know, I would like to see them on the commission, but also if having some sort of advisory committee increases their interest, then that's great. There's no reason not to have it.
It'll be a gateway drug. Advise and then they'll want to sit on the commission. That'd be great.
Potentially be a situation where we ask our sitting Parks and Rec commissioners and possibly our council members to reach out to a certain number of youth and seniors in their community and help spread the word and get applications. Just for this initial go around to see if we can get support for something new that we're trying to do.
Yeah, I'd love that. And again, I think that dovetails right into what Alden was saying. You know, I mean, there's this commitment of getting here and whatnot, that I think can be a barrier to people participating. So, yeah.
And then there's also the flip side question of not being a voting member counted in the quorum. Will that reduce possible participation? Will it have a ramping down effect over time, or is there a way to keep them active and engaged in the process, even though their vote is not required for passage of an item, but to make it input that's welcomed and wanted and needed as part of the public process?
It doesn't seem like there are any dissenting voices, but did I miss one? That people see, it seems as though the general energy is around pursuing Rebecca's recommendation on moving the youth commissioner to a youth advisor role, seeking at least one, if not multiple, and exploring the same idea with seniors. That is what
It could also be exploratory for a year or two, or until you decide otherwise. The way the ordinance reads now, it says, I think I have a snippet of it in here. One seat on the Park and Recreation Commission may be filled by a resident of the town under the age of 18 to be a voting member of the Parks and Recreation Commission. I can talk to our town attorney about leaving that language as is. And we can come back to that later. We don't necessarily have to change that now. It just says may be filled by. So we could try an advisory role for a certain amount of time as a trial period and see if it works and see if we can grow it, and knowing that we have this to return back to, and that possibly at some point you may ask to increase the membership to make both a youth and a senior voting members.
that makes a lot of sense.
I don't know if staff has any recommendations from places they've worked that helped garner more youth and senior engagement.
Well, if we are having a hard time filling a youth position and we increase it by, I'm trying to think if that solves our numbers problem, because we essentially don't want an even number of voting, right?
That's correct. You would want to either increase it to 9 or keep it at 7.
Okay,
Not 9.
not 9. Yeah,
That would be 9.
I think that's a little bit of postponing the inevitable, of having a voting youth commissioner. I think that would be a very sporadic fit for the commission, and I think the more I think about it, the more I think that youth position should be a non-voting position, just to make things like quorum and filling the position easier.
Initially, I don't recall which commissioners were part of the process that established the subcommittees. I think it was Emily Janowski and Louise Brown, but there were commissions, and it may have been the programming, where it was the intention of having an advisory sort of cadre of residents of varying ages to participate in that and provide feedback and input on programming and events and activities, and sort of a way to grow potential future membership on the commission and a way to get additional community engagement. And it hasn't happened that way yet, but also we are still growing the concept of the subcommittees and the work product that they do.
Again, I think the advisory role for our youth and senior commissioners would be ideal in terms of getting more input from those two age groups without causing problems in terms of our voting. If we would have 7 voting members, correct? And then 1 youth advisor and 1 senior advisor.
And with a 7-member body, your quorum would be 4. But since you had 8, currently we need 5 for a quorum, which has been touch and go lately.
Yeah, I would say make it a 7-person and then a youth and senior advisory positions that are not voting.
Agree. It has the added benefit of being in compliance then with the 7-member rule, right? Which I'm in favor of.
Do you have any thoughts on how long we should give a trial program?
Well, I think you make the commission 7 and maybe that the 2 advisory positions are trial. Because the commission number needs to change no matter.
Well,
don't know.
currently our youth commissioner is a 1-year appointment. He's
Okay.
graduating from high school and moving on. So
We would
Uh,
not fill that position as.
as of June 30th, we will, unless you appointed a new youth commissioner, you would have a 7-member body again.
Okay.
And then we can move to having, I think it takes a little while to get ramping on any of these kind of having people participate and get going. So it sounded like, Rebecca, that you were thinking a 1 to 2 year trial.
That's what I'm thinking. It may not get a big turnout the first year, but maybe it would evolve the second year. And if we figure out a way to reach out to local public schools and the private schools that we know that our residents attend, that maybe we can get a large segment of the student population, at least maybe 1 representative from each school that we have residents attending. I think we could probably grow it from there. The student leadership groups usually would like to participate in something like that.
It sounds like this is naturally going to happen
Mhm.
in June, in that our current
Correct.
youth commissioner is terming out or moving on, and we will remain 7.
Yeah. So the question is, when we do our outreach, which opens this week, do we actively recruit for a youth commissioner, or do we pivot and actively recruit for youth and senior advisors?
I think pivot.
And then
because if
define
there's
the role depending on how many
Remember.
we get.
in the same position.
Yeah, so is it just nomenclature? Because we're asking for very much the same thing, but with a little bit, there'll be a little bit more flexibility and, maybe less guilt when someone can't come because it's not an issue of a quorum. But is there anything prohibiting it from calling it, calling the position even the same thing, like a youth commissioner?
That is a very
It's
good
not
question.
Like, why are we, why is this sort of ramp up and reassessment? Like, maybe the ramping up needs to be on our end, where we invite more youth and we try to drum up excitement about it. But I don't even know if there needs to be any sort of big pivoting, except for we now will know that that's not a voting position, right?
I'll ask our town attorney to weigh in on that.
And it's easier.
Correct. Okay.
So is this an item we need to officially advise and vote on, Rebecca?
It was more for direction to staff, and I feel like I have that direction. It was not intended to be an item with emotion. Just if anybody felt strongly one way or another, that we keep things the same and reduce the number of adults through attrition and attract a youth commissioner, or try this new model and see how it works with youth and seniors as advisors, while also encouraging the seniors to apply for a commission seat.
Yes.
But I was just turning my laptop to see if we had any public comments. I am not seeing any raised hands, and we did not receive any emailed public comments. thank you for your input.
Thank
you,
Thanks for
Rebecca.
remembering to bring this back up.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to staff updates and commissioner reports. Ashley.
So first off, you got a nice presentation on our active older adult programming. There's just maybe one more caveat that I would mention is that the big band dances, they don't meet in August, so they do take August off. So don't wait till the summer, come sooner. Corte Madera's Children's Center and summer camp are gearing up for summer. Hiring camp counselors now, like I mentioned before, as well as CIT applications. So CIT applications, I believe, are due the first week in May. And camp counselors, we'd love to have, anytime. And then kind of an ongoing plug that we are always hiring for after school enrichment classes, as well as for our children's care program. So if you have any kids or youth or neighbors out there that are of working age that want to do a couple of hours a week and ahead of summer, let us know. Alex Peretz does all of those first reaches. After school enrichment classes, Erin is receiving applications for fall class proposals already, because then it'll begin the draft of the fall information packet that'll go out to families. We're always working many months ahead. And then as soon as we get the schools in session, we'll have those applications, or we'll have those menus go out. And we'll have a delay of when our after school programming starts. So it gives the opportunity for people to receive that hard copy in their backpacks, as well as the digital version that'll be available ahead of time. And that'll be for a semester basis. So again, the 2 semesters for school will have different menus for that. And then again for summer going out in spring. Adults with developmental disabilities. Erin is again the lead for that, and she's got weekly events and outreach, and there's always volunteer opportunities for families. So it's a great also family way to get out and help with the basketball programs or attend the third Friday dances. There's a lot of opportunities that are fun and inclusive. Upcoming activities, as I highlighted, we've got the 2 egg hunts coming up with collaboration with Larkspur Recreation. So we've got the Friday evening flashlight egg hunt for their older kids over at Pepper Park, and then the traditional morning egg hunt at Town Park on the Saturday, the 10th, is it? 8th. Saturday, the 8th of April. And that'll start at 10 o'clock sharp, and we'll have the maps displayed online soon. Moving into Town Park Restroom Project, to give a little bit of an update that the footprint went out today. So if you happen to be by Town Park, check it out. Just to put it out there, we know it's going to rain tomorrow, so we know that all the display material will be replaced, but we're actually waiting for the high resolution design from the public restroom company anyways. So just a stakeholder, just a temporary placeholder out there for now. We also are hiring for a recreation supervisor position. So that's a full-time position. That is essentially going to be a return of that capacity. So we have not had a recreation supervisor since 2021, I think. And so that the areas of responsibility would be facility rentals, adult programming, hopefully some of the special events, and the activity guide. And that's the main marketing material. So that's the intention of that position, and it closes on end of April. So if you know anybody that's in the Parks and Recreation field, please encourage them to apply. And that's the end of my summary.
Thank you, Ashley. Updates from recent town council meetings.
Yeah. All right, Commissioner Brown was good enough to attend the March meetings, but is absent today, so pass this on. So at the March 7th meeting, the town council enjoyed the same presentation that we did in February for this sky whale mural designed for the freeway underpass on Warnham Drive. She shared all of the same information that we got, and town council unanimously supported the project, as well as expressed an interest in exploring future public art opportunities throughout Corte Madera. Sounds great. At the March 21st meeting, the council voted on the urgency ordinance allowing businesses to extend their footprints to outdoor spaces. And so those temporary parklets are now approved through December 31st, 2023. And that was all the business that related to Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank you, Louise.
The executive advisory committee did not meet, and so we're on to individual commissioner updates. I just have one. I'm gonna try and say it without crying, but wanted to thank from all of us. Thank you, Ashley, for your tenure with Corte Madera Parks and Rec. You have a lot to be proud of. You have left us in an incredible spot with kids, youth, senior programming, adult programming that has been incredible. The scholarship program is an incredible thing to have launched. Can't wait to see that really flourish. And then the master plan is in an actual place to move forward, which at one point I thought might not be possible. So thank you. You will be missed.
We're gonna have an opportunity to vote and then deny your ability to move on.
Accepted.
Denied.
Before we close this meeting, are there any other topics that commissioners would like to put on future agendas? Any recommendations for ad hoc subcommittees? I have one suggestion. Given that we are maybe a couple months away from new commission members potentially actually going through and figuring out and reforming potentially the how to join Parks and Rec Commission, kind of what it is, how to do it. Would anyone like to participate in helping make it easier for a new person to join and feel productive?
You mean like purely the application process?
No, like one can
or-
show up for your first meeting. Like, what is
Oh.
it that you do here?
Oh, excellent.
Great. Rebecca has it covered.
Okay.
No
Good
need
to
for an
know.
ad hoc committee.
Should have known.
Does it or does it not include hazing? Rebecca? Oh,
Excellent, excellent.
Well, there we go then.
All right. The next month is April.
And I will
Commissioner
be
Brooks.
absent
Oh,
for our next meeting.
you won't be here.
I will
Okay.
not be here. I will be in Disney.
Oh, nice. Does that mean you want to, does that mean you need someone to read?
No,
your
she-
update or you're? going to
No,
the meeting?
Commissioner Elson is
Oh,
in
got it.
June. Commissioner Phipps is up.
I am.
Yes. All right. And with nothing else, we'll close this meeting. Thank you so much for your attendance and participation. Gavels me.